back to Blender again, and you'll notice when you open Blender up that it has these recent files, and these are the most recent files that you've worked on. So I'm going to click on our previous file, which is glass.blend, which is the one we're using, and at the moment it's in render view, which is blank. So show hide render view, and there we are back in our universe. Now, if you remember from our previous render, there were a few things wrong with it, and one of those things is, as you can see there, it's reflecting grey. Well, why is it reflecting grey? And the answer to that is because our world is currently grey. So let's change that. If we click on this world icon here and click on use nodes, and you can see we've got a colour there, and we want to take that all the way down to black. And you can see now we've got a spotlight there, but it's not terrifically bright, is it? So what can we do about that? We can go to our lamp, and we can click on the little lamp symbol, and we've got a size there, 10 centimeters. Well, let's raise that up a bit, and we're going to hit use nodes again, emission there, and it says 100, and we can turn that all the way up to, well, maybe 200, double the amount of light, and that's a little bit better. But you can see it's still not terrific. Now there is a reason for that. Normally when you're doing a lighting setup, you will actually put in more than one light. You'll put in your main light, which is this one, and from another direction you'll put in another light. So let's do that. And this time we're not going to use a real light. Well, when I say a real light, I mean one of the built-in lights. We're actually going to use something else. So let's go back into solid view, and you can see there's our spotlight shining down, and what we want is another light. We want an infill light shining across that way in kind of a direction that's almost opposite to our spotlight. So if I add another object, I'm going to add a circle again, a mesh circle. Make sure it's a mesh circle, not a Bezier circle. So there I've added in a circle. Let's scale it up a bit, and let's move it up so we can see it. There it is, and I'm going to go into edit mode, press F to fill it with a face, and we're going to make this our light, our infill light. So if I hit it back into object mode, now what I want to do is I want to move it. I'm going to turn this into something that emits light. I'm going to want it over here. I'm going to want to rotate it. I'm using the handles to rotate it so that it's pointing roughly at our cup. Now there are ways in Blender to get stuff pointing exactly at other things, but I'll cover that in a future video. So now what we want to do is go into the materials, which if you remember is this ball shape here. We want to add a material, new material. I'm just going to call it light. It's not going to be diffuse, it's going to be an emission shader, and emission is something that produces light. And let's have a look at what that looks like at a 1 setting. Let's go into render view. You can see there we're starting to see other things now. 1 is a bit low, maybe we want it to be, I don't know, 2. And that's kind of okay. We can live with that. Now, what you can see here is a reflection, but a reflection of what? A reflection of absolutely nothing. So let's fix that. Now, very often for outdoor scenes people use a thing called HDRI lighting, which basically puts a background on the whole world. But for indoor scenes like this, that doesn't really work because it's not very controllable. So if we go back into solid view, first thing I want to do is move this table a bit. So I'm going to move that into the background using the green arrow there. And now I'm going to introduce you to add-ons. And add-ons are a brilliant thing. So if we go into user preferences, you can see we've got all these add-ons. You can see this at the top here. You've got various settings that you can change, but we want the add-ons tab here. Got all these add-ons which are helpful little things that sometimes you want enabled in Blender, but not always, which is why they're add-ons. But this is the only add-on that I would recommend that you always have installed, really, because it is so useful. And that is in the import export. And if we go down here, it's called images as planes. And you'll find some of these are already ticked because they're ticked when Blender comes installed, but this one probably won't be. So all you need to do to activate it is to click on the box next to it and hit Save User Settings, and then close that little window, and it's now installed. And what are we going to do with that? Well, we're going to put something there for it to reflect, and you can choose any image you like. You can even choose a picture of yourself if you want. So I'm going to go File, Import Images as Planes, and I'm going to pick a picture from somewhere. Let me think. Well, I could put a picture of myself in there. I have a lot of big collection of images that I use for various things, and I might have an interior one. I'm not sure. I think I do actually. There's an interior. And I can't for the life of me remember what that is, but now that will have been imported as a plane. So if I lift that up there, you can see it's a small plane. And I want to use the trick we saw the last time, which is rotating X by 90 degrees by simply pressing in the box there, and that will have made it vertical. And then I'm going to bring it out here. I'm going to scale it up, making sure it doesn't get in the camera view, and I might have to reposition this later. And go into the material settings, you'll see it's already set up with an image texture and it's diffuse. We don't want it as diffuse. We want it as emission, but we want it as a very low value, say 0.3 or something like that. And now if we go into render mode, rendered view, you can see our cup is actually starting to reflect something. Now this is the interior, obviously, and I'm not 100% sure if that is okay, in an okay place for it to reflect from. So if I go into solid view again, if I turn this around, you can see it isn't, because it needs to reflect on there, which means we have our camera up here, and looking at where the camera goes, it's going to be down here. So we actually want this down here, and we still want to scale it up more, but I'll go into the camera view first, and I'll scale it up as large as I can by hitting the S key and moving the mouse, and now we should be able to see this reflection. Why not? now it's looking much more like glass, so that will do for the moment. Right, put our view back more to where I want it. I think I might very well move that lamp actually. Rotate it a little bit by pressing the R key and moving my mouse. I'll move the spotlight, and I'm going to move the spotlight back towards my light bulb, my camera, view top, rotate until it's pointing directly at the glass. I want to take my camera up more than that actually, so I'll select the camera, move it up considerably, view camera, change my angle of view, and we're back to where we were originally really, except now the glass is looking a little bit more like glass, which is cool. So let's do something about this bench material that it's standing on and the wallpaper behind it, and this is where we get into some slightly more advanced materials. So let's go online, and I'm going to look for mahogany texture. We'll have a nice mahogany bench, shall we? See what we've got. And there's some called dartwood table there, so we'll go for that. You can see what we have. We have there like a bench top. Got tiled benching. And this looks quite good. So I'm going to pinch that one. For the moment I'm just going to save that in my desktop. I'm going to go back into Blender. Let's hide that render. I'm going to go into select that actual table section there, and into materials. Currently we've got a mix shader. Right, now up here you'll see this area here, and it's got a section, lots of different sections, and they're window layouts that are good for various tasks. We want the one called Compositing. Although we're not going to be compositing, we need to click on this which says show me shader nodes, and there you can see this material as a node tree. Now node trees, it's like, if you like, lines in a computer program almost, and there's lots and lots of different ones. Now, at the moment we have the diffuse colour supplied by this violet, and what we're going to do now is we're going to add a node, and we want a texture node. It's an image texture we want. We're going to take the colour into the colour there, open, and we're going to open our texture that we just downloaded. And if I turn this to rendered view down here, you can see what we've got. And it won't be terrifically good at the moment because we haven't done a thing they call UV unwrapping, but it may very well do for our purposes. And I want to turn the gloss up. At the moment it's nearly all and if I turn it that way, no gloss at all. If I turn it that way, it's 100% gloss. We don't want 100% gloss, we probably want about 50%. So let's see what that looks like. I hit render image, and we'll get the rendered image down here for us to have a look at. By rotating the mouse wheel you can zoom in and out. And you can move around in here exactly the same way as you did before. And we do want some roughness in there, but it wants to be a very, very tiny amount. Maybe 0.02 or something like that. You can see it forming down there. You've got a much better reflection. Now let's do something about the back wall. And once again I'm going to go into Firefox, and let's have something, I don't know, flock wallpaper, maybe some sort of design, something like that. How's that? Have one of these designs. We want a reasonably large texture, so I better set the tools here to large. And that's pretty good there, isn't it? Or do you want this one? I don't know, the choices you have choosing wallpapers. I'm going to save that one in our desktop as well, but this time I better rename it. There we go. And we'll go back into Blender again. This time we're going to select the back wall. And you can see this has changed immediately, and we'll do exactly the same thing. We're going to add texture we're going to add, it's an image texture, select colour to there, open, and open that, You can see now we're getting a reflection in our table as well. Now we can't actually really see an image on there, and the reason for that is we haven't UV unwrapped it. UV unwrapping tells Blender where to put the image. So we're going to go up here again, we're going to change, go to UV editing, and we've got the wall selected. We need to go into edit mode. We want to select A for all, and then we want to go into shading UVs on the side there, unwrap. Smart UV project is a good one to get used to, and you can see that's been brought in over here. Now we need to look at the image, so click on here, Wallpaper flock, it's come out, and we'll see how it's been automatically placed, and that's absolutely fine. If we wanted to make the pattern bigger, we can make it bigger. We don't need to do that for this little scene here. So let's go back into default and let's do a quick render. We're starting to look a little better already. Now I might not want this quite so glossy as it is down here at the bottom, but I can live with it. And that's fairly cool. So you now know a little bit about UV maps and a little bit about our friend gloss shader, and yeah, a bit about lighting and a bit about add-ons.
Well, you could subscribe to Arduinotronic, or just go jump in a lake.